Okay. Welcome everyone. Namaste to Caribbean Hindustani and our interview with Mr. Satkriti and with Dr. Bhimull and myself, Raj. And we'll be continuing our discussion from last week. Satkriti.
Hi Raj, hi Visham, how are you?
Hi Sitaram.
That's great.
Sab
That's
kuch
great to
theek
good.
thaak ba.
That's great, Visham. That's great. So, Visham, Raj, today I was thinking that what should we discuss, and as in the last one we have told that performance art is going to take an important concept in our discussion. So today we are going to discuss about Londa Nach and Mati Khor, because these are two styles which has been performed by the diaspora community also. So
Right.
Visham knows, Visham being a native there, Visham can describe these things in detail. And with the help of these performing arts, today we will learn about that how Indo-Caribbean community have termed or seen that homosexuality concept before the arrival of British, and with the arrival of British, what the mindset has been changed during the colonial period. So let's start with Visham. Visham,
Sure.
can you elaborate us, yeah,
Right.
how
I
Indo-Caribbean
just
community has, yeah.
right. So the you mentioned Mati Khor,
Yeah.
right? That is, well, the wedding ceremony itself kind of um evolved over time for convenience. So it's essentially 3 days, right? Um, it's 3 days in Trinidad and it's 3 days in Suriname and um in Guyana. Uh, Now, we don't use these words in Trinidad, but these words are used in Suriname. And I never grew up with these words being used, only recently because I went to Suriname, I learned the words, but then I came back to Trinidad and asked, and they said, yes, these are the words. So the Friday night is the Tilwan, um, or Mati Khor, right? Well, Hardi Kirat, I I I think that's later with the influence of Bollywood. Then the Saturday night is called Bhatwan. That's in Bhojpuri, but we call it cooking night, right? Um, and well, Sadi Biaha, but we say wedding in Trinidad, right? So that's the 3 days. Now, um, within the sphere of the Indian diaspora, these 3 days were days where the opportunity to perform existed, right? Especially the fact that gathering and so was not allowed on the estates. And well, I guess the colonials would have allowed for maybe just wedding and those sort of things, but they would crack down on it. In other words, you had to apply for a permit and so. Um, but so that's why uh, these 3 days kind of would allow, and the performances evolved around these days, right? The Friday night, usually they would, well, that's Marty Core, that's when they go and dig the dirt. So they go dig the dirt to ask the Mother Earth to bring her blessings on the on the on the festivities, on the rite of passage, and women usually would sing songs. Now I know that women alone, or I would have heard that they said women alone would have performed or were allowed, but by the time I came around, anybody usually would attend, right? Now I remember, yes, as a young child, uh, prepubescent boys could have gone, but once you were past that age of puberty, you weren't allowed to go. So maybe when I was around 8 and my cousin was getting married, I was allowed to go and see what was taking place, right? Now it's not like that anymore. Anybody go, because the Tassa men as well go, right? They would usually go to uh, a place usually where there's running water or well, far away from the house. The Tassa men would lead, um, and the women would sing
Fair.
songs. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and,
Go
and,
ahead. Go
and
ahead.
and on the Friday night is usually, well, that would be folk songs, but on the Saturday night would usually be more local classical singing. That's where that kind of evolved. Now, note that in Trinidad, earlier weddings were night weddings, but now the weddings take place in the daytime. So that the in the night of the Bhatwan, uh, into the other day, because it wasn't Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they would usually travel in the night and get married and so. But what I wanted to say was that Launda Kenach is what one thing you noted. I personally have not seen or vaguely remember as a child, but in Trinidad, yes, it used to be performed around that wedding ceremony. But there is this Black Madonna that exists in Siparia. Uh, Hindus worship it, but it was very significant in the sense that um, it was a place of pilgrimage and still is a place of pilgrimage, because I remember going with my grandmother there to offer gold to this Black Madonna, right? It's called Supari Mai in Bhojpuri, but it's La Divina Pastora. There's one in Venezuela. Because Trinidad was part of Venezuela. Now, when boys are, when you cut the child's first hair, normally they would tuck it into some cloth and throw it below that church where the goddess resides, La Divina Pastora. And it is said that Launda, well, we say Nachanya, this Launda Kinach, I only learned that word from Suriname. Nachanya is the word I remember as a child. Would dance with the young child on shoulders in front of the Roman Catholic Church, right? That is one thing that was recorded, and one thing about Launda Kinach that I know distinctly from Trinidad, but haven't heard anything similar in Guyana and Suriname.
So it was like quite secular there. Londa Kanacha, are you trying to say that even Christians used to perform before their ceremonies?
Well, there is a lot of meshing in Trinidad between remember Hinduism and Roman Catholicism are quite similar. The only difference is one is Semitic and the other one is Indo-European. The thing is that
Vishal, maybe one thing that well, I don't know why. One thing that is that many of them saw the roop of Madonna as a roop of one of their deities. Sorry, Vishal.
Was that name you mentioned?
Roop.
Well,
they had.
Well, you see, the whole point about it, and I want to bring this from my experience, and this comes from my nanny, is that and this is why I look at Hinduism from a perspective of the diaspora, because it is a time capsule of pre-partition India. I remember my grandmother used to have an altar with idol, effigies and pictures from all religions straight across, so that I kind of, her perspective of the world is what I would say, so that the mere fact that she would go to worship Supari Mai as one, because she had a picture of Supari Mai on her altar. On her altar was brass murtis of Krishna, Ram, Shiva, and then there was Guru Nanak, there was of Allah, I remember, written across. There was Indira Gandhi, there was Mahatma Gandhi, all these people she used to, was on her altar. And then when she would offer prayers in the morning, it would be this. So the fact that she would go to Supari Mai to worship and offer that, I mean, I don't want to say it's typically her, but to me it would seem like every Hindu in Trinidad. So
yes, Vishal, my nanny did the same thing too.
So there's this perspective of Hindus, at least in the Caribbean. And I'm saying this with reservation a little bit, because remember the current movement in India now with BJP is a bit different. It's a bit different from the pre-partition perspective, because I was brought up Presbyterian because I went to Presbyterian school, but at home we were Hindu. And the whole point about it is that I would see my grandmother, as well as everybody else in the community who were Hindu, respect everybody else in that sense, so that it didn't matter if you're Muslim. And then do you remember the whole issue of Muslim and Hindu in Trinidad is identity of being Indian. The fact that we celebrate Muharram, Hindus would celebrate Husay, which is Muharram.
That's great. That's great. I think like in diaspora somehow, caste, religion has, when they have went there, somehow it has vanished. There is always presence of there, but I think in compared to like in different parts, I think the diaspora are the have more porous structure regarding your identity, sexual, religion, caste. What I have gone through the research work and what you are telling, it seems like that only.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a pre-partition or if it evolved, but it's the form of Indian culture I would have known growing up here. I don't know if it got assimilated into that from what came before, but I don't really know what came before. I remember it was just interviews and readings and when people did these things. But yes, exactly what
Fair,
you said is how I notice, at least from a Trinidadian diasporic perspective.
fair enough. So one thing I think Raj was telling an anecdote regarding Raj. You were talking about that there is a story you wanted
Yes,
to.
yes, there's a story. So on that, one of my Guyanese friends relayed to me, or that he'd written down, Rajiv Mahabir. In one of his articles, he wrote of the story. He gave the names in the article, but forgot at the moment. But in his article, he explained that on the boat coming to Guyana, there was two men, and they were caught having engaging in intercourse. And so what happened was,
Sexual activity. Yeah.
yes, sexual activity, yes. So
It's a very I think you are forget I think you are talking about the same because it's a very famous anecdote. It's a story of Mahengo and Nabi Bakshi. It's in
exactly.
1819.
So you can share.
It Yeah, 1897 voyage. It was going through Calcutta to Trinidad, basically Guyana. It was going, and basically ferry name was Mersey Ferry. And it's a very interesting line. Archival recovery of the story of two endangered Indian men, Mohengo and Nabi Bakshi. Mohengo was a Dalit, and Nabi Bakshi was a Muslim, caught in a sexual activity in 1898 while being transported aboard the British ship Mersey to the British Guyana. So it's a very interesting and long story that how they were caught, and they termed
Punishment.
that, yeah, it was a very brutal punishment given by colonials at that time. And especially both of them were like, their even tongue were being cut out, and for like 14 and 15 days we were sentenced in one closet to stay there. And it was like a colonial concept for them. And what I have gone through my work, that our ancestors were more porous about the sexual identity. Then with the coming of colonials, their thought process changed, and their thought process become like colonials were quite against the rule of homosexuality, and it was them who brought the thing in India. Before the coming of colonials, our porous structure regarding identity, on sexual identity, were quite everyone knows regarding Kama Sutra. It was born in India. So we were quite open regarding this thing. And this story it's a very famous among diaspora, and they have given this. Behind this, they talk that the reason behind this was how homosexuality started on the voyage of Jahaji Bhai and Jahaji Bahan, because of the number of women were less.
Yes, the sex
It's like
ratio
1/3.
was,
Yeah,
yes.
sex ratio was very less. They have told that. But many places it was also written that it wasn't regarding ratio. Many find it pleasure. So you can't blame it on ratio. I think, Visham, can you elaborate regarding this thing, if you have heard anything? Yeah.
The first point I want to agree with is yes, the the brand of Hinduism I know in Trinidad is one that has imbibed a lot of Semitic concepts. One, and the ideologies. For instance, you mentioned the fact that this whole issue of homophobia and all and that I would want to think that it would be because Raj and I had a conversation regarding Hindu uh, rituals. I'm not sure if you know about this, but in Trinidad, as a Hindu, it's perfectly normal to be buried. Um, all through the indentureship period into up to I think the 1970s in Trinidad. Uh, Cremation wasn't really a
Wasn't
popular thing.
legal.
Well, I wouldn't say. Well, Keith doesn't say illegal. It's just that well, to a point, when the independence movement in India had started, which would have been in the 1940s and 50s, when it came to its peak and the independence in India, there was a rebranding. I think we mentioned this, I'm not sure in the previous conversation. There's a rebranding of what Hinduism was and what Hindu identity was. I had asked Keith in his research and this is just to give an example.
Yeah.
We were talking about the whole issue of same-sex relationships. Right. Keith had done the research, and well, when it was legal now from the 1950s all the way to the 1970s, Hindus is still buried, and it was a norm. It was a norm. One, it was cheaper. Two, there weren't spaces where people could be cremated. It was very convenient to bury, and Hindus had already comfortably settled into rituals based on a burial, right? One wonders what was the ritual before. One wonders if in India it was also burial. But remember, you have the ghats where they would burn as well. So the mere fact is that pliability, I think Satkriti had mentioned regarding how well we adapted in the diaspora to do something like burial was the norm. I mean, people might want to preach that, we are being oppressed because we are forced to bury. Blah, blah. It wasn't that. Hindus were comfortable, very comfortable, and their rituals were altered for burial. That's one. So again, we could look at this situation with homophobia and same-sex. Again, Hinduism, even though in its tenets in the past and what was written had that been expressed, again, it adapted to a Western, a Roman Catholic, let's say Christian world, where it would have existed, but again, it was on a down low because it was not mainstream. Again, just like asking for cremation wasn't asked for because it wasn't the mainstream. People just accept that, you have to bury and just not have to go through all that. I mean, looking at even the story you mentioned, the torture the man had to undergo, people just would completely avoid it and keep it in shades. Now, we mentioned Launda Kinach. Launda Kinach is Onachanya is what I remember as a child that had that issue of a man dressing up like a woman. Now we on this subject, but I really can't say if I witnessed it as a child. Yes, but it's so vague and it's so because I was born in 1980. I think it did exist in the 1980s. I think it did exist because people would have spoken of it. I vaguely remember seeing it. So definitely it was before 1990 or when I turned 10 that I would have seen it. It doesn't exist in Trinidad anymore. But then I remember writings by Angelo Bisesa Singh and Kumar Mahabir, Dr. Kumar Mahabir and Angelo Bisesa Singh, where they spoke of now. Angelo Bisesa Singh belongs to Siparia. So that is where the Suparimite church is. So that is very, well, he would know of it because it's from his town. Kumar Mahabir, I think Dr. Kumar Mahabir did some research and writing as well, but I thought that Angelo Bisesa Singh representation of it was more detailed, I guess, because he was more intimately linked with it. He grew up in the town of Siparia where the La Divina Pastora church is. So that is what I remember reading. But Trinidad and Tobago know about this, but then there are fewer and fewer accounts of it being performed at the Matikor as well as the Launakina, the Batuan. But remember, I posted. Go ahead. One point I wanted to bring up. Remember, I posted something from Suriname. Was from Rajendra Matadin, where there was a Nachania performing. It would seem in some sort of function. I can't say if it was a wedding or what. But when I saw that, it was very familiar to me. In other words, I remember seeing that at some point as a child. Now, my Aja and Aji is from Pinal, which would be right next to Siparia. My Nana Nani is from Cunupia, which is central Trinidad. I lived there most of the time. So whatever I would have experienced as Indian culture, even though yes, I would know some from Pinal, it would be more from Kunupia, Shogunas, and environs. So that, and one thing I want to mention, I I remember I used to spend the nights by my grandmother's house on Friday, because that would be the last day of the week from school, and you would hear the Nagara drums playing in the back. This would be about 10 in the night, because that's when she would set us all up to sleep, and you could hear the Nagara drums playing and the Biraha singing somewhere in the distance. So these things were performed at these
So,
Friday and Saturday nights.
sorry to disturb you, Visham. One thing I wanted to ask you, like, what was the mindset, like, when your ancestor used to see these performance, like back in India, like there is still a mindset. If someone is performing as a cross-dressed dancer, he's either a homosexual, he's either gay, and he's just that. They still not consider it as an art form, and he considered that if you just cross-dress, you turn into a gay, even if that person is a straight. So what is the mindset? Like, yeah, Raj, you wanted to say something regarding
Yes.
this?
So let me kind of explain the mindset in Suriname, which I was surprised. All right, in Suriname, Londa Kinach really has a high status for some reason. Even people will say, "Oh, they make good money," and they know that that person is not a they believe that person is not a homosexual. That person has a family, and he's doing this as a legitimate profession, and it's an honorable profession to them. So these Londas get to travel to Holland, America, wherever be, and they have the opportunity to perform, especially when it comes to an auspicious occasion, right? That it is necessary to have the Londa there to dance. And what they do, which is interesting too, at least in Suriname, is they make it, they'll wear clown gloves and a very comical lehenga and everything. So whereas maybe in India, they'll really look like a female, like a normal female makeup and etc. But in the Suriname expression, they make the Nachania very gaudy looking, right? And very comical. And during these auspicious occasions, the Londa is necessary to dance.
Yeah, it's basically Londa was always been seen as someone who is going to perform in the auspicious occasion only. They were considered like before any like festival, Londa is going to perform. Even in India right now, even during COVID, there are many quarantine zones where Londas are being called to perform, to entertain people who are being quarantined. So it was always seen as something which is considered as derogatory by many, but still they want to see that performance. And it's very wrong, because they have objectified that thing. As I mentioned, that it's the colonial mindset which they are still following. They are not able to see that art style, and they've just by their objectifying this thing as a derogatory. So there is a very thin line on which, as I told you, I'm working. Yeah, Visham, you are saying something?
No, I think in Trinidad, as far as I remember, yeah, it was not looked down upon. It was accepted as just one of the art forms, just like Nagara. And so, yes, the mere fact that I think that it existed in Christian colony would have led to its decline, or how people would have observed. But from my at least from the community of the Hindus themselves, they would look up this. There is also, I wanted to mention, Raj, because Pawan did some
research,
some interviews with Londa Kinach. He had interviewed. It's on Caribbean Hindustani. He had interviewed one. I forget the name of the show.
A young boy, right?
Well, there was two. Pawan did one, and I put up another one. And they were given the perspective of, again, within the Surinamese Dutch in the Netherlands. They again would. I mean, it's very popular. It's and the guy who they had interviewed, he had said, yeah, I mean, this is just his performing art. After this, he married, he have children, and I remember going to Suriname and interviewing a Launda Kinach. A guy who did Launda Kinach, an old guy. His son does it now. He lives close to where Chris Ramkilawan lives. And uh, even though Launda Kinach was that art form, he did other things like he taught Hindi. He got some certificate from the, I don't know if it was a consulate or whatever it was. So he was very, very, he used to promote Indian culture a lot. And what you tend to find is that most of these, and I guess this is why I had to survive in that way, is most of these art forms from Indian culture would tend to atrophy into a few people teaching the art form. So that even like in this guy's case, yes, he's Dulanda Kenach, but he's also teach Hindi. He's also teach music. So and slowly we see that even in Trinidad, like the art forms, they dwindle and only a few people now, and so much so that it's not like a gharana anymore. People dabble in a little bit just for the sake of propagating, so that you would do like one person could teach a few different art forms, whether it be playing an instrument,
Yeah.
singing a particular dance, for the sake of survival, because it's not really
Yeah,
institutionalized.
that's a very interesting point which you have raised, that how they are like they are doing other stuffs also along with this for the survival part, and that's why they are still able to do it. Back in India, what's happening, that they are facing many problems regarding, as I mentioned, with the caste issue, homosexuality issue, and seeing this style as derogatory style. They never consider what happened, that Britishers or even elite class in India, elite class, never consider folk style as an art style. They always seen this, anything which is being termed as folk is considered as derogatory or impure, the term they have used always. So the same was with Londa Ganach also.
I have another word that was used in Trinidad. Visham, maybe you may know for that type of form. Somebody messaged it to me, so I'm not sure how it should be pronounced. It's in Latin letters. But the first word is Raja. I think Harish Chandra.
Yeah, Raja Harish Chandra.
Raja Harish Chandra, yeah.
So let's just divulge now. Yeah. So we're talking about the performing arts, drama, and I think this is how Satkriti and I ultimately linked because of his involvement in drama.
Yeah.
Drama holds is a huge aspect of diasporic culture. Ramlila, we all know, right? Ramlila is the most popularized, the most popular people might know. But there's also, remember I spoke about the Nagara drumming. So the Nagara drumming has people perform pieces of famous Indian epics,
Stories,
but
epics,
but more from the UP Bihar region. So like Raja Harish Chandra is one.
Raja Harish Chandra's story, yeah.
The other one is Aladdin Ke Moi and Sarwanir. That's the three that I at least know of what people speak of. I have never seen them. I don't think they exist.
So that's why my Nana was telling me this Rajesh Harish Chandra was usually performed by men when he was growing up.
Again, yes, and the thing is that I think it's the same Nachanya who was be involved would also have imbibed that and also performed. So even though he would have performed as a Nachanya, doing the Nachanya dance, he would also probably do the Rajesh Harish Chandra. And there's
One
a
thing,
lot of them. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Vishen. Sorry.
What I wanted to say was that now that we mentioned the costuming, yes, the Nachanya costuming and the Raja Harish Chandra costuming, similar. One is just male and the other is female, but it was made up in the same sort of style. And yes, just like the Nachanya would dress up in a particular way, the performers for these would dress up in a particular regal way, like we mentioned, because Raj was saying that the Nachanya will be like a divine being dancing on stage. The same, and I think that, I don't know, the perspective of, because remember in Hinduism we talk about what's the word? The word is manifestation, incarnation. So I
Incarnation.
think right. I think when we talk about a stage, we see it as that is creating that space of a manifest from
Well,
a
that's the
unmanifest kind
idea
of
it
thing.
should be, right? Because even when they're doing Ram Leela, the spot where it's happening is considered holy.
Yeah, but why I make particular reference to this is that the story of Raja Harishchandra and Sarvanir. Sarvanir is the Sarvan Kumar story, where
Yeah.
where Dasharath shot his parents and give him a
Yeah,
shot.
he killed it with the bow. Yeah, with
Right. Again, yeah, it comes back to why I made the point to is yes, because all these stories came from epics, which was supposedly from again incarnates of the divine beings that would have come on it.
I I was curious to know one thing, Visham. Like as I worked over the colonial history and the history of desire in India, I was going through that. What happened in India, especially in Bhojpuri part, why men started performing as women, because it was kind of a patriarchy society. And I'm talking about after the coming of Britishers. Before the coming of Britishers, we were much open that women used to participate, and they have quite equality among the identity. But what happened after coming of Britishers, and with the mindset of Britishers, our society also changed, and the men were performing as women because they never wanted women to go on stage. This was one of the reasons. So, in terms of diaspora, what do you think, that diaspora still carry that mindset? And
Yeah.
do you think
No,
that
well, not.
if women wanted to perform as cross-dressed men dance, like I was talking to Raj, what I did last year during the performance, for the first time I asked women to cross-dress as men and perform the show, and it happened for the first time in US. So, is there a mindset like that women can't cross-dress and perform as men, or only men can cross-dress and perform as women? Because in India, it was a mindset. And I'm talking with a reference. Alia Khan has mentioned regarding this thing in Indo-Caribbean. Her work on Indo-Caribbean is that there is a mindset that, yeah, just a second. I have written this thing. It's an important thing that she has mentioned that gay relation is still tolerated, but lesbian have no voice among Indian Caribbean community, like she has mentioned. So what do you think, like if women performed as cross dress, is the same concept like in India, back in India they have seen in this way, or diaspora have
Well, I
overcome
mean,
this thing?
I think the diaspora has overcome it. I know it did exist because remember in the last conversation we had a week ago, I I gave you my experiences about the caste system and remnants of
Yeah.
how it still existed. And I think my nanny again comes from that tradition because I remember I used to attend Ramlila as a child. Well, there was a community Ramlila close in the village I used to live. So it shaped a lot of it's Christian Lila, Kans Lila. It shaped a lot of what I know about um, Hinduism and stories of Krishna. But my nanny used to say, yes, but you know, in when we were small, when in my time, or when I was a child, or when we served this in the village, because she was from a village away, more further from where I grew up. Um, that women never used to perform, and they were not allowed to go even in that general area, and it's only men, and men used to perform all the parts of whether it be um, Rawan side or Ram side, any part in the Ram Lila itself. Um, and well, and I don't know, there is this issue, I believe, which I have noticed, especially at least from this side, yeah, this side, because I never went to India, so I can't say. I don't know what has changed. What was the influence of a Western Christian?
No, in a like in a popular culture, you will see a lots of change. Like you can take example of Bollywood, but if you go in rural areas, in a folk culture, the pattern is still the same. Sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to clear that thing, that
Yeah,
in India
I mean,
also it has. Yeah.
uh, so the perspective I am given again that, I mean,
Yeah.
I actually thought it was quite sexist. Uh, one, there are certain traditions that I grew up with that I thought was that. I mean, this is one. My grandmother saying that. The other thing is that even though we grew up with our Nani and Nana, because normally the girl would go and live with her husband's family, so you'd grow up with Aji and
Yeah.
Aja. Once I
Yeah.
remember my mamu telling me when he had some water and I was going to drink from it, he was like, "No, you can't. You're not supposed to drink your mamu's juta." And then slowly, little things like this, I realized you're basically trying to cut out that link between your maternal lineage and more in line with your paternal lineage. So I don't know. That's just my perspective. I thought that a lot, and come back to the point you bring up, a lot of traditions I grew up with, and this would be I'm talking about in the 1980s, right? 1980s, 1990s. I thought was sexist, but now beyond 2000, they have changed because again, boy and girl perform in Ramlila. Um,
Oh, that's
in the
great. That's great.
in the Kendra, girls dress up as men and uh, play male characters, whether it be a demon or a deva or whatever it might be. So
Mhm.
in the current, and I guess is good that I would
Yeah,
grew up in
that's
that
really good.
area
Yeah. Yeah.
and now to compare, but definitely, and I think the other reason, the other part of it too is that now and are not it could be yes people more in a world of equity for the sexes, but the other thing I think too is that a lot of times all the people who performed these were men and these men died out, so people thought, you know what, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense to keep it in this tradition of just men passing it down or in these families or whatever. So it's just expanded in such a way that it doesn't matter even if you're male, once you're female as well, once you're of the diaspora, once you promote anything that is of the diaspora, then everybody took on that responsibility now. The only issue
Yeah.
with that, I think, is that there's less documentation because
Yeah.
it's like somebody looking at a Bharatanatyam style and mimicking it. Because for the sake of survival, yes, we want to do that, but again, it lost that those tenets of the institution and where
Right.
we do certain things and whatever. So
And
Yeah.
that's one negative. Yeah.
that's one negative, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something we're working on right now with a few projects.
Yeah. So
No,
I
that's
mean,
really interesting. I was also going through that. There is very little work on the history of Jahaji Behan. You can find it work on the Jahaji Bhai, but the
mm,
Jahaji Behan and the lesbian part of the history, homosexuality related to that. There are many stories regarding the gay stories of the voyage, but there are very few stories related to homosexuality and
I
lesbianism.
think
So yeah.
I think they would if there were stories they would be cut out because one is that people who might have known or associated with people might maybe not want to be associated with them so that they wouldn't want it to remember. There's something about Indian tradition, and I'll explain. This is another thing, right? Okay, I'm saying this. My nanny probably would never want me to say this, but anyway, it doesn't matter now because um, yeah, because she kept this story from me for ages until I found out. So my nana's name was Hollywood, right? And I never knew why. But apparently there was a fight in a junction where well, he won the fight. So that's how he got the name Hollywood. At that time, Hollywood is really popular, right? Yeah, Mr. Hollywood. So that's how we got the name. But my my nanny never ever wanted her grandchildren to know this story because she thought that it's a negative connotation on the family that your grandfather had a big brawl out there in front of everybody. And only when I can't remember the exact point when I found out, but whenever I asked her, she would be like, she just can't tell that story. Not, no, she basically. So again, that goes against, and a lot of things would be lost now because there are stories from my family that yeah, I only found out when I got much older. I guess probably because they realized maybe I'm older I can understand now. But I that was definitely a tradition, especially in Indian families. If any story would have put their family in a negative light, it would be cut out.
Yeah,
Two, three
Vishav,
generations, it would be lost.
Vishav, you're right, because there's things that my nani and nana will not tell me, and my mom will tell me, "Well, this is what happened,"
And I honestly can't tell you who I got it from. I don't know if she did it, but I remember she would have said no. I can't remember how she would deflect, but the story never came forward.
Fair enough. In the last, uh, it's almost hour. So I just wanted to end with one thing that when I was going through the work, that when the diaspora community used to meet for a performance, yeah, like our ancestors, so like your ancestors who migrated, they used to use a Bhojpuri term, Apanjat. So are you guys familiar with these
Yes.
things still? Apanjat?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say in Guyana I heard the word, nor but maybe in Suriname. I know Fijians use the word, but yeah.
Now I heard it in Trinidad already. Apanjat.
Up and Jack.
I have heard it. I did hear it before.
So
It
it's
used-
still a it's still a common word to use,
No.
Apanjat, because
It
Apanjat
was-
means to same caste. So,
No.
No.
They'll use it like our people, and they're
Yeah.
different
Our people.
jati, and we're different jat. Yes.
Okay.
Right. No, I think yes, and I think Raj is correct, because there's that connotation again where we're moving out from caste system, but we want to empower people in thing. I think we should move.
Yeah, but as I told you, they don't use to in that way. For them, Apanjat means everyone who is from India. They use for everyone for Apanjat.
Right.
They never consider this as a caste derogatory term. For them, Apanjat always means to that whosoever is coming from the voyage of a ship, and Jahaji Bhai or Jahaji Ben, they all are Apanjat. So they have removed that
Right.
thing. But for fellow Indian, they use
Yeah,
this term Apanjat. Yeah.
Oh, I want to add something about the about homosexuality. So, which wasn't brought up, is that actually in today's youth, at least in I've seen in Guyana and Suriname, that quite a the actors and actresses
Yeah, showered before she came.
are actually homosexual, and they're performing in Ram Leela and different performing arts
That's
in Suriname, Guyana. So I do see that, and they have high roles. Some of them are playing Krishna,
Yeah, that's
what not be, but
Sorry.
there are even now there are pundits and pujaris, though they may not be completely open. Some of them are homosexual as well.
okay. That's an
So,
interesting point. Yeah.
something that I have noticed, especially in Guyana more so, that there's a lot of pundits that are coming out that are homosexual, and there are
No, it
also,
wasn't. Oh, sorry.
and also in the people that are dancing or performing some sort of performance art are also homosexual.
Okay. That's fair point. Visham wanted to add something, I think.
No, he
Visham?
must be busy. But maybe I can ask the next question.
Hold on, just now, guys.
Gotcha.
No, that's an interesting point you have mentioned, that even before, like, if you, as I mentioned you, that our history, if you go through the Hinduism history, it was quite porous. That sexual identity was never present.
Exactly.
Even if you go in the Bhadralok period or Bhakti movement, it was quite open. They never considered the homosexuality was never a bigger part. With the coming of Britishers, and they imposed the law in 1789, 377, the article which imposed about the homosexuality. From that point, it became a derogatory term. Otherwise, we were quite open. If you can go through the history of you can go through the history of Krishna, you can go through the history of Shiva. So they were quite open regarding this thing.
Yes, yeah, it's fluid. It's very fluid. And
Yeah, it's very fluid.
And what's happening now is, at least what I've seen in Guyana specifically, is a lot of congregations are now actually teaching their youth about our past and it being rather fluid. So a lot of youth are now coming out, are now coming on being more open about it. So that is something I found interesting.
One of the, like, I was going through the work before an article, and I was going through the Madhvi Menon has written a very good thing, the history of desire over India. And in that, she has mentioned that the history of India, if you go through the desire, it's full of impurity, if you think in that way, because our history is full of desire. And that desire is something different. It's not like just giving sexual education. Our desire is something totally different, which was quite fluid, quite open. And it was not narrow-minded like what colonial has imposed on us. So it's good that the history has changed. I think Visham has to go. He has left.
He's left, yes, but it is rather interesting. You know, now I'm hearing children telling me now stories of, what's his name, Arpan, when Krishna took the Mohini Roop, right? During
Mohini, Mohini Avatar,
Mohini Avatar.
It was not Krishna, it was Vishnu who took the Mohini Avatar. Yeah.
But Krishna also took it during Mahabharata for Arpan.
There were many religious stories you can go through in which they have transformed from. Krishna used to perform as a cross dress, which we are talking about. Krishna used to perform at that time. If we go through the mythology. So
now my point is, these youths now are bringing up these stories, and I'm finding it very interesting. Like, okay, now they have Shastra support for, and they're saying this and saying, well, we can do this because this happened in the Shastra. If Arjuna was teaching, who was Arjuna?
Yeah, Arjuna. Yeah, Arjuna used to cross dress. Yeah, and he used to teach
music, right?
Yeah.
Right, and the son married the girl, right? So now they're coming up with these references and they're supporting themselves as they're doing this and being rather open and proud about it, which is something very, very different.
No, it's really good to talk about the history openly. It's depend from people to people what you want to do, but at least you should know about the history instead of what the as I always say, what the colonial have imposed. Instead of going on that, you should know about the history, and then you can make your own mindset, what you want to follow and what you don't want to follow.
Exactly.
So it's good, Raj. It's again, we have did our second episode and it's like almost 1 hour. So it was interesting talk today.
Yes, I hope we were able to answer your questions.
Yeah. It's really going good.
Okay, so we'll conclude and next meeting with Jason.
Yeah.
All right.
We will do it. So I think next you and Visham will be also there.
We also will be there.
Fair enough.
And Jason will talk to you. Thank you so much.
Same here. Same here, Raj.
Yeah, all right.
Good to talk to you.
And we'll talk to everyone soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.